On a day when the Prime Minister announced the repealing of the 3 farm laws, which have been a reason for farmer protests and political protests across the country, I'm joined by Member of Parliament of Rajya Sabha and Congress leader Deepender Hooda. Good evening, Deepender Hooda. And what do you see these backtracking on farm laws, the repeal of the farm laws, as a victory for the Congress or the victory of the farmers?
No, it's not about any political party. It's the victory of farmers. It's the victory of Indian farmers' struggles. The agitation, in my memory and estimation, since independence, this has been one of the longest and largest agitation, which was broadly very much peaceful, and the farmers were very much disciplined in what they did for 1 year. Such a struggle and such an agitation is not an easy accomplishment. So, you know, it's a struggle during which 700 farmers lost their lives, whether various dharnas, Tikri dharna, Singhu dharna, Ghazipur dharna. These farmers who sacrificed their lives, their bodies were returning to the villages of Haryana, Punjab, Western UP, be it Lakhimpur. Farmers lost their lives, but still they did not lose their calm and patience. And they stayed on the track of peaceful protest, peaceful agitation. For 1 year, Navika ji, I just left Tikri border. I was there in Tikri border just 5 minutes back before you started talking to me. You know, I can share with you the video. There are some people who are 86-year-old, 90-year-old, who have been there for one year. They've been sitting there and hoping that their government will listen to their voice one day. So that's what I mean by what I said earlier. This is what the decision of the Prime Minister today and the government today is totally a victory for Indian farmer. It is dedicated to those who have lost their lives. It is dedicated to the struggle of Indian farmer.
Mr. Deepender Hooda, some people have come out to try and explain this, saying that this announcement of the repeal of the farm laws actually is a statesman-like approach by the Prime Minister. Do you agree with that expression?
Navika ji, how can I agree with that? 700 farmers have lost their lives. If this decision was taken when the agitation started in Parliament, we spoke as opposition and the farmer leaders spoke and they said the farmers are not going to go back home. That's why I can say to the point that there I durust hai, but to claim any statesmanship in this, I think it's a sad commentary on part of, I pity those who can even make such claims.
Mr. Deepender Hooda, you're a young politician, you're a young Congress leader, and I want to ask you, Indian farm sector, the Indian agriculture sector is certainly not based on the best practices. We have marginal farmers, we have lack of economic holdings, we have lack of modernization in the manner in which agriculture is done, and we also know that a bulk of our population is dependent on agriculture. These farm laws were also part of the Congress agenda when your manifesto came out. I want to ask you, today, yes, the farm laws have been repealed, the protests hopefully should come to an end. But do you think the agriculture sector and modernization and reforms of the agriculture sector have gone back by many, not just years, possibly decades? And doesn't that worry you?
I don't agree with that at all. 50% of our population is dependent on agriculture. Average size of Indian farm is about an hectare. Compare this to US, where the average size is 600 acres and only 0.5% of the population, less than that, is dependent on agriculture. So when you have such strong individual farmers with average holding of 600 acres, you can subject them to market forces without a government supporting hand and hope that there's a level playing field and they can negotiate contracts with big companies, etc., and fight court cases, etc., etc. But India is a unique situation. In this unique situation, what has really worked over years is the MSP mandi system of Punjab, Haryana and Western UP. That's why the average income of farmers of Punjab, Haryana is almost 3 times the average income of farmers of Bihar. Haryana and Punjab, you'll get about 2,000 even in this season. And if you go there in Eastern UP, you won't even get 1,200 or 1,000 rupees. So so government should try to extend the system which has worked in Indian conditions.
So, Mr. Deepender Hooda, when the Congress party in its manifesto promised agriculture reforms and to bring in these reforms, were you talking of a different blueprint? Because many people say that the blueprint and the promises made by the Congress are same that have been implemented by the BJP-led government at the center, just like GST. GST was worked upon by the UPA government but implemented by the NDA government.
See, the reform, the market reform that the Congress party manifesto talked about is allowing in private enterprise and private business into the mandis, subjecting them to the condition of mandis, not creating 2 different mandis. One for the private companies where there is no tax on the purchaser, and the other from the government mandis where there is a tax on the purchaser, because in the government mandis, mostly the purchasers are FCII, Food Corporation of India, or for example, Punjab, Haryana have their own government-owned marketing companies. So when they purchase, they have to pay some tax. So these private mandis, basically this law envisages that these private mandis, the purchaser who may be a private business, they will not pay any tax. And they can purchase at any price. The government purchase is bound by MSP. So these 2 are the key things, and that's why we are welcome. If they're the people who say that this will bring prosperity to the farmers, why don't the private companies come to the mandis, the government mandis, and why don't they purchase on MSP or above MSP? If they give above MSP, the farmers will go to them and they will not go to FCI or any other government marketing company and give their grain at a lower price. But there should be a condition, foundation. Who determines MSP? It is not me or you. Government of India itself. This is the minimum support price under which if you don't give this price, the farmers are going to fall below the poverty line. So this is determined by the government. Let government fairly determine it. And then let government ensure that the private firms are coming to the mandis and at least are paying the MSP. That's the fight.
So, Mr. Deepender Hooda, according to you, did the BJP get the economics wrong or did it get the politics wrong with these farmers?
In this case, they got both wrong. And because I don't think their advisors, whoever were their advisors or whichever lobbies were working who during the corona time, had the government bring in ordinance. Such an ordinance was not required, such an ordinance during the corona time to bring about these widespread changes in the farm sector in India, which is such a crucial sector for this country. So those advisors or the lobbyists did government then the politics, the fact that entire BJP put its political capital behind these and showed such absolute stubbornness. I would go beyond that. More than the stubbornness, how insensitive the BJP leaders have been in our states, calling these farmers, all sorts of names, calling them Khalistani, calling them Updravi, calling them funded by abroad, calling them, all sorts of names that they are not real farmers. And in spite of the fact that so many farmers lost their lives, not one BJP MP from our state or minister, or chief minister, deputy chief minister, they even visited one family, and at least, if even visiting one family, at least expressed that we are sorry, we don't agree with your demands, all right. But from these dharnas, people are dying. We are sorry somebody has lost their lives. Has one BJP person spoken that Lakhimpur so many farmers lost their lives? We are sorry about that.
But Deepender Hooda, many would say that ahead of the elections in 5 states, Mr. Modi has taken away from the opposition a cause that could have been your election slogan.
No, see, many would also say that if I were to turn this argument, that BJP has not done it because it's, having any care for so many 700 lives being lost and thousands of farmers, lakhs of farmers still sitting on the dharnas. BJP has done it because of these 5 state elections. This is a precise reason why BJP has done it. They are just worried about their, vote shares in these states. They are just worried about their poll prospects, and that's why they have done it.
I said the BJP has faced elections even before these 5 elections, Assam, West Bengal. They didn't pull out the laws at that time. They've done it now. So why would the elections charge be made against the BJP?
Because, see, there are 2 regions, and both are my neighboring regions, and I'm very well acquainted with those regions, where the elections are coming now, which are the epicenter of this agitation. Assam and West Bengal, this agitation was not as prevalent and with as much fervor as it was in Punjab and Western UP. And, while BJP almost wrote off Punjab, and seems like they've completely written off Punjab, Western UP, they don't want to write off, because Western UP is where they got most of their seats from last time. If you remember the last UP elections, that's the elections where there was this was the election in the backdrop of Muzaffarnagar riots, and this Western UP belt, which is neighboring to Haryana, voted for BJP in big numbers. All sections, including the farmers from Western UP, I can tell you, for the first time, farmers voted in those big numbers in Western UP. And at the moment, the situation there seems very shaky for BJP.
Deepender Hooda, many bright lights from the Congress party have either left, or some bright lights have formed a G23. I want to ask you, should there be a full-time president of the Congress party? Will the Congress party fare better with the electorate if it had a united front and a functioning president who takes charge of every corner of the country?
The Congress party is very ably and compassionately being led by Srimati Sonia Gandhi ji, and a full-scale election schedule has been announced. We are under the process of membership right now. So I'm sure in days to come, the congressmen and congresswomen we will elect our own president, who will continue to give leadership to the main opposition party in the country effectively.
Well, Deepender,
thank you for your consistent concern for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your consistent concern on the health of the Congress party.
Well, I don't mind. So long as I get to speak to all of you, you taking pot shots at me is most welcome. But I want to only say one thing, कि एक थी बीजेपी जो कहती थी मंदिर वही बनाएंगे, तारीख नहीं बताएंगे, और अब एक है कांग्रेस जो कहती है प्रेसिडेंट हम बनाएंगे, तारीख नहीं बताएंगे.
तो अब तो शेड्यूल और तारीख भी आ गई है. प्रेसिडेंट हमारे हैं, सोनिया जी हमारी कांग्रेस की प्रेसिडेंट हैं, और वो पूरी तरीके से कांग्रेस को एक कंपैशनेट और एक इफेक्टिव लीडरशिप दे रही हैं.